13 minutes past 10. At the start of a relationship, everything feels exciting, doesn't it? The constant laughing, the date nights, the chemistry. But as the relationship matures, the pressures of life kick in. Maybe the kids. As we all get older, it can sometimes be difficult to make time for romance. So today we want to talk about how we can keep that spark alive, and we've invited the relationship coach, Teresha Young, back on the show with us. Good morning.
Good morning, Dom. Happy Valentine's Day to you.
And you, are you feeling that Cupid arrow just sort of taking aim?
Oh, yes, that set up to me coming on. I'm just feeling it so deeply, Dom.
Teresha, okay, let's take a look at this. And I am really mindful that there are a lot of people who might be listening today who don't feel that same, not only maybe spark, but also they've got a different opinion on it. We'll come back to that. But first of all, the romance, the spark, they're so loaded as words. It's so much pressure on people. And when we look at people over 50 in a kind of long-term relationship and beyond, what are we thinking here?
You're right, because when you think about a spark, you think a spark goes out normally, isn't it? But what we want to do is keep the fire burning. We want to bring some oxygen to the connection with somebody. So the spark can feel like it can fade over time. That's why we have to be very intentional about drawing into the connection, presence and intentionality behind our relationships. Because there's so much pressure to conform, particularly on Valentine's Day as well.
Yeah.
There's a heavy marketing of it all.
Oh, yeah.
You can see it all the time. I mean, I've had so many emails come through, Dom, this week telling me what I can do for Valentine's Day, what I can purchase. It's so loaded and so heavy. And then we've got the societal expectations. People want to put up an Instagram reel, a TikTok reel, something on social media to promote their relationships and almost compare it to other people.
But do you think as we're older, we're kind of... I definitely feel like the pressure is not, I can only talk about my relationship. The pressure is not there to feel like we have got to go out tonight for a meal. Otherwise, I do not love Amanda if we don't have a meal tonight, and we go, and it's a candlelit thing with all the other people having a candlelit thing and everyone's saying the same thing. And then someone's looking over at the other person over the room and the person's just given them a rose and you're sitting, I haven't done a rose. All these things that happen that can sometimes overwhelm us. And actually, we can talk about relationships 365, not just one day.
That is 100% accurate because it's not loaded to one day. It's about creating meaningful actions every single day in a relationship. Every single day could be called Valentine's Day, but we have to be very intentional about what we do in order to keep the fire burning.
Let's have a listen to one of your cases then, and let's hear how you worked with this couple.
Feeling distant from your partner can happen at any stage of a relationship. Whether you've been together for a few months or several years, that emotional gap isn't always about the length of time you spent together as a couple. It's about connection. Now, a couple I was working with have been together for 10 years. Despite their deep history, shared home and mutual responsibilities, they both admitted that they felt more like distant roommates than romantic partners. Perhaps you can relate to this. They weren't arguing, but something was missing, that sense of closeness and emotional connection. After working together, we uncovered a common cause that I see with many couples I work with. Their conversations have become purely functional, focused on schedules, responsibilities, and logistics rather than emotions, dreams, and desires. So here are 3 key areas we focus on to help them rebuild their bonds. Firstly, we looked at intentional communication. They learned to move beyond surface level discussions and actively listen to each other's emotions and needs. Secondly, we looked at rebuilding the emotional intimacy. I encouraged them to reintroduce small moments of connection, such as meaningful eye contact, to revisiting shared passions. And thirdly, we looked at navigating conflict constructively. They weren't arguing often, but when they did, they avoided the tough conversations. So we worked on approaching disagreements with curiosity rather than defensiveness, which allowed them to feel safe expressing their emotions. Over time, they not only regained their closeness, but felt stronger as a couple, knowing that they had the tools to nurture their relationship going forward.
Has that helped? 08000 321 333. Start with Kent. Share your story with us on BBC Radio Kent. You know, it's great when you kind of boil it down to certain ways of thinking as well, Teresha. It's that kind of emotion and needs. Just something as simple as eye contact, holding hands. You know, I love the fact that whenever I'm out with my wife, we're always holding hands. We've never stopped holding hands. And it's such a lovely, immediate way of saying, look, you know, not only are we together, but we care about each other. We want to guide through life together. There is something, though, that is deeply difficult for people. And I'm thinking of those listening now who think, right, I've heard those bits, but, you know, I lost my other half. I have gone through a breakup recently. I've gone through a messy divorce. The kids and my grandkids are all involved in this. It's very difficult. How can I reconnect again? How can I find that next part of my life, that next chapter when I feel completely run down?
And that's the thing, that's coming back to self-care and self-love. So that's about pouring into yourself and finding the things, hobbies, interests that bring you joy so that you can start to build up taking care of yourself. And when we think about self-care and self-love, we often think about having pampering treatments, taking care of your health. And yes, that is part of self-love and self-care. Equally, it's all about how you can pour into yourself, into your mindset. What can you do to feel better about yourself? So see if there are any hobbies, any interests outside of your work. Perhaps even have a support network that you can talk to about how you're feeling right now and find ways to actually feel love and appreciation for yourself. And a great way to do that is to actually practice gratitude on a daily basis. So think about things you can be grateful for each day, the big and small things, whatever it might be, and why you are grateful for it and how it makes you feel. I think that can be one thing to help us, give us that self-nurturing that we crave from somebody else. We can give that to ourselves.
There'll be people, that's great advice, listening who might be going out tonight and thinking, right, now, we know with restaurants you probably needed to have booked literally 2 weeks ago, to be fair. But I'm just wondering if there's an alternative thing that we could be doing. And maybe it doesn't have to be a date night, it could be a date day. This afternoon when your other half comes home from work, you know, they'll probably be exhausted. But maybe you could just say, why don't we just take a little walk together, just have a moment, you know, things to do that are not always so big.
Oh, that's a lovely suggestion there, Dom. And other things that we can do as well is you can write a heartfelt letter, for example. I think most of us have received a love letter at some point in our life. And just tap into how that made us feel at that time. You can send a heartfelt letter expressing appreciation.
And how lovely that was. You know, you remember that moment where we had the love letter said, God, it was like, and it wasn't just, the thing is, it's not about just being a kid, is it? You know, you as an adult, to send someone that letter with your words, where because some people, it's not always easy to express yourself, opening your mouth and saying words. Sometimes you want to write it down, and that can be so much more meaningful and powerful.
It can be. And handwriting notes these days, how often do you see a handwritten note? Not often. That takes time and intentionality to be able to sit down and write a letter. And it feels good for the person giving it, hopefully, and for the person receiving it. There are some other things that you can do. You could have a picnic in your living room, for example. You don't have to go out to a restaurant. You could maybe even do a DIY spa night at home and just make it feel special inside your own home. It doesn't have to be expensive at all.
You had me at picky tea. Teresha, lovely to have you with us. I hope you have an amazing day. Thank you for being with us on the show as always.
Thank you for having me. Take care now.
TereshaYoung.com. Great to have our relationship coach with us on BBC Radio Kent on the Daytime Show.